All right. Welcome back to the Rock and Roll channel. Billy P back in the house. I'm going to make him become a regular, whether he wants to or not, because his insight's been spot on. We fed off each other more than we do at a sports bar lately, which is good, I guess. But everything we talked about that we were afraid Norvell wouldn't do, and that you really said perfectly, he did.
Yeah, I'm really happy. I'm about as happy as I could probably be, given the year we've had with
Right.
some of the hires. Signing day's tomorrow, so that's another leg of this. I don't think we're going to be as happy with signing day, but for what we did this weekend, coming out with big names from programs, from big programs who know what championship caliber players look like and have a really good track record statistically of success, and really, probably better recruiters than they're getting credit for. Gus Malzahn, when he was at Auburn, never finished outside of the top 15 for a really long period of time.
Right.
So he knows he can recruit the South. He knows how to go into a living room and talk to a really good player and get them to buy in. So I'm definitely more happy with Tony White from a scheme standpoint than I am Gus Malzahn. And we can get into some of the X's and O's. Why I watched 2 games from Nebraska's defense this past year against Colorado and Ohio State. I broke the film down, and the more I watched that film, the more I really liked Tony White.
Yeah. He's been on the hot board for head coaching jobs.
Yeah.
Last year and this year.
Yeah.
And he didn't like working with Matt Rule, or he knows if he can change our defense, he's going to have a major head coaching job. He was going to get the UCLA job if they didn't play it safe with Deshaun Foster.
Right. Yeah.
And he played there, and he was deserving of it.
Yeah, and it was weird. I heard some stories as to why he didn't get that job, and it was kind of interesting. They almost, if they didn't recruit from within, they thought they were going to lose the whole team. Like they didn't bring in a UCLA guy, which is that can happen. And I think that was some of our fear this year. Like everyone could just get in the portal. And we're still not out of the woods there yet. Like we don't know what this roster is going to look like. We don't know what our recruiting class is going to look like. I don't know how these new hires are going to resonate with the recruits. We're going to find out in short order. It was a big of a splash. I think it was probably a bigger splash from an X's and O's standpoint, from just a strategic, having some heads in the room that Norvell can bounce ideas off of from a brain trust standpoint.
Yeah.
It was about as good as you can get.
And he's got guys now also that he was around a lot of yes people at Florida State. Guys he made as coaches or were past their prime.
Yeah.
And he made their bank account bigger, but they weren't going to say to him, Mike, this is a bad idea.
Right.
Gus and Tony are going to tell him. They're not coming there to be yes people. Yeah, he's in charge. He's the head coach. But Gus Malzahn's not taking orders from Mike.
I'm curious to see how there's going to be a back and forth with Mike Norvell and Gus Malzahn, because his passing scheme, it doesn't wow me.
Gus is now.
He has missed on quarterbacks. I mean, outside of Cam Newton, he has never coached a solid quarterback. I mean,
but he took Nick Marshall to the championship.
Yeah,
a former DB, and Stidham put up decent numbers. He doesn't need an all-world quarterback to win. Right. Which I like about Gus.
I also think that Auburn, that was a really good Auburn team, and it was it was almost a triple option from the shotgun, which a lot of teams do now. So it was the offense at the time was a little ahead of its time, and defense has caught up to it. So one thing Gus is going to do is run the football. You see number 6 in the country running the ball.
They were no lower than 6, but they were 5 for most of the year, I think.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if it's almost like Gus, you're the running game coordinator, and Norvell's still involved in the passing game a little bit. Because
I think he can be a passing game coordinator per se, give input there.
Yeah, Norvell's passing scheme is a little bit more intricate than what Malzahn's has been in the past.
I mean, he learned from Gus's offense and then, made some tweaks to it.
Yeah.
Which is good. They're very familiar. I mean, the terminology is probably going to be very similar too.
Right.
But Norvell can let him run the offense during the week. and he can deal with the big picture stuff.
And go
Like
recruit.
this is perfect.
If they can execute that way, like Norvell's got to turn into Billy Napier style recruiting, which Billy Napier is, man, does he turn the corner? And so when you and I were arguing about the Mike Norvell thing,
That's true.
This is why, like, going off of a short rearview mirror, it bothers me at times. Billy Napier had actually a pretty bad couple years, and people have been ready to fire Billy Napier for a long time. It looks like he's getting it better.
They collected the money.
Yeah,
I
but
mean,
also
it was done.
he was just on the field product. They had penalties. They did everything that you would look at a coach and say the culture's not even right. And he got it right this year, and he turned the corner. So again, when it comes to making decisions like that, I am all for administrations not listening to the pitchforks on social media and the talking heads, because if every administration did that, no one would have a job ever. Everyone gets Ryan Day. People want Ryan Day fired. It's the dumbest thing I've ever heard.
Oh, you should have been there the other day. We'll talk about that later. But basically, the administration, Ira Schafel said it great. And I like to say their names to say it because I don't want to take credit for it. But he said, basically, you made as much big changes without firing Norvell.
Right.
As you possibly could. That they still believe in him, which we talked about.
Yeah.
And they were like, let's just give him what he needs.
Yeah.
Because if they didn't believe in him, they wouldn't have let him fire all these coaches and pay these buyouts. They would have said, no, you wanted raises with these guys, make it work.
Yeah.
But they still believe in him.
Yeah, and this is, I guess, on the offensive side, this is how I think it can work. If they get some pieces on the offensive line, which is the must, otherwise those don't matter.
Right.
I think Gus is going to be able to run the football. And if we can run the football and you can sprinkle in Norvell's style of passing game, it can be effective again. And then I really want to talk X's and O's on defense with the scheme that Tony White brings.
Yeah.
Because when I heard he ran a 3-3-5, I'm like, oh no.
Charles Kelly.
Because NC State ran a 3-3-5 a few years. West Virginia made it famous. And I never really liked that look. But when I put on the film, the way Tony calls it, it is a very progressive 3-3-5. It's also an aggressive 3-3-5. It's not 3 down linemen and 3 linebackers set off the line of scrimmage with his secondary. There are times where it looks like a 4 and 5 man front. The reason it's a 3-3-5 is he likes to use more linebackers. He takes a D lineman off and he inserts it with a linebacker, and he mixes and matches those combinations. There's even times where he only has 2 down linemen and he has 4 linebackers to make a 6-man front. So really, it's a 3-3-5, but that first 3-3, the 3 down linemen and the 3 linebackers, it's a mix and match. And the thing that I probably like the most is I watched 9 series in the Colorado game, and I think they had 7 or 8 series in the Ohio State game. Not once did he go back-to-back series on defense with the same look up front.
Right.
And there were times they were running the same concepts, but the look was different, which is, I don't know why more coaches don't do that. Because, we forget these offensive linemen, they're 18, 19-year-old kids, some of them not the brightest. They're easily confused. Line somebody up in a different position or a different spot, different gap with a different skill set, and confuse them, because they're going to go back to the sideline after their series is done, tell the coach what they saw, and try and make adjustments. And they're going to jog their 320-pound ass back on the field, thinking they know exactly what to do now. And instead of a D tackle on their inside gap, they got a 220-pound linebacker on the outside gap, and they're confused. And they may be covering the same gap. So I really like that. His calls on third down were great. It's almost like they looked at what we didn't do well this year and got coordinators to offset that. Because I think one of the things all Florida State fans have been frustrated with Fuller was teams just looked so comfortable on third down.
We were so predictable.
They were so predictable. Yeah. It wasn't even just third down.
And he hasn't changed in 5 years at Florida State. The book was out.
So even if he had a different call, the
Mhm.
look was the same. It was 4 down linemen, 2 linebackers, and then
Right.
block corner for that second layer. And teams weren't uncomfortable with it. Our defense next year is going to make teams extremely uncomfortable. Nebraska's
If we get the players.
well, Nebraska's that was the other thing I noticed. Nebraska's secondary sucks.
Yeah.
They were slow. It was rare to find somebody out of position, and it was rare to find somebody missing a gap or assignment. There were times they got completely manhandled and blown off the ball as a defense because they weren't good. But his scheme covered a lot of that. And because they applied so much pressure and confused the offensive line so much, his secondary, it really made up some ground on their lack of ability because they didn't have to cover for so long. And they still got burnt sometimes because, I mean, some of their safeties were just slow. And it was Ohio State and Colorado. So really good receivers.
No one burned him for Colorado. Not Travis Hunter, not anybody. They had no explosive plays that game.
Right. They gave up 10 to Colorado. And I watched those 2 games in particular because I wanted to see 2.
Nebraska fans were very proud of that, and they should have been.
The game I haven't watched yet, which was later in the season, was UCLA. They got smoked.
Watch the Minnesota game.
Okay.
PJ Fleck, who hates throwing, second half had no choice but to throw.
Right.
Because he completely stuffed him. And the Iowa game from this past weekend. Iowa, who's not the old Iowa offenses of 6 points and that's it. 5 first downs the whole game.
Yeah.
I understand it's going to be different in Florida State, but he's coached big boy football. He's a great teacher. He learned from Rocky Long, who is the architect of this defense. But there's multiplicity with him in doing it.
That's the thing.
Charles Kelly, it wasn't multiple when he did it.
Right. He runs a complex scheme.
Yep.
And for as complex as it is, it's rare to find a play where his guys don't know what they're doing. They almost play with more confidence because they know they're playing chess and not checkers. And it showed. So I'm really excited to see, the other thing that I think it does for next year's, for our skill set on defense, for the personnel we have, is you don't need as many defensive linemen.
Right.
And I was thinking about it. It's kind of a smart move from an NIL standpoint too, because defensive ends garner a ton of money.
Yeah.
Outside linebackers don't. And if you're going to have 2 down linemen and your DNs are going to be hybrids,
right.
Especially if they're an up-and-comer, they're not going to probably cost as much money. I know that sounds crappy.
No, and we're going to the salary cap next year. So everyone's on an even playing field.
Well, I'm just in terms of evaluating resources.
Right.
There's so many more linebackers available
in
the portal than there are.
That's why we couldn't get linebackers also. Right. But we couldn't get good linebackers also because besides Shannon, our scheme, it's hard to go to the NFL in that scheme we were running with Fuller.
It is. It's a 4-2 is a tough because you're playing middle linebacker with outside linebacker. You need outside linebacker ability because you have to cover. It's not suited, and we haven't recruited linebacker well. And already you've heard buzz about potential flip candidates at the linebacker position. There's 4 names at linebacker that I love. We haven't been talking about 4 potential linebacker recruits. I mean, when is that? We
haven't been talking about like 4 and like 1 a year for 4 years. Like something.
Yeah, they just deprioritized it because
this guy has a heck of a reputation, which I love. Like you said it best, and I completely agree when you said we need guys who've coached in the big ball games. Now we're going to find out the backstory if Brennan Marion was the guy or not, if Mike just didn't want to wait. Because I saw a different side of Norvell after the Florida game. It was like the BS is done. Yeah. Now I can take care of my plan. I never want to live this again. I mean, he's swallowing his ego too to bring in basically 2 other head coaches.
He is, and
which I love because he wants to stay here.
So to that point, I do think that Gus Malzahn is more of a safe, don't get me fired play than it is like Tony White's a home run. It'd be hard to name a defensive coordinator that would bring to the table what he brings to.
But Elliott said the same thing today.
Oh, did he really?
Yeah. No, honestly, Billy, that's what I'm saying. I got Bud Elliott. I got all those analysts on the show with you. Bud said Gus is no problem with him or Marion, 50-50 either way. He said, but Tony White, A+.
Yeah, especially after you watch the film on him, it's unreal. Now Gus, I mean, there's probably sexier picks. I mean, it's
Not really. That was available
Well, he's a big name. So
for a
in terms
2-win
of,
team.
yeah, in terms of what like the wish list I wanted, he checks all the boxes.
Right. I mean, I didn't think we'd get a blue blood like this. I said that. Who's leaving the Big Ten and those resources to come to us?
The only
Happily, I'm wrong.
the only thing that does worry me about him is his passing game is not. If he's literally just
Gus?
if he's just given the keys and full autonomy, we're going to run the football well, and our passing game is going to be dated, meaning simple route trees, and it's very effective. I mean, all passing games are very effective when you can run the ball, and I just
If
don't
you
know
have stud receivers,
which we
I don't care if it's dated. No, we don't. I hear you. That's where you
we need
might
to
get it.
we need to scheme guys open.
Yeah. I mean, you need players. We could talk schemes, X's and O's all day if we don't have players.
Right.
I mean, that's why we got to hit the portal hard.
Next
And
year,
Gus and Tony are going to have big say in the roster. Mike's not bringing in guys where it's like, these are your position coaches. These are going to be your players. Like, they're going to have say in the position coaches. I mean, I'm hoping he takes his offensive line coach, Herb Hand, who's coached everywhere.
I love that guy. Yeah, that'd be a great candidate.
And that was his guy from UCF, I think.
It is.
And Texas, and he's coached everywhere.
I'm surprised they haven't made that announcement already.
They're still doing background checks, and they just announced Gus. So
yeah, I'd like to see it. I mean, tomorrow's signing day, and we're bleeding offensive line recruits.
But Gus has already talked to recruits, so I'm sure there's a wink, wink, nod, nod.
Think we're gonna keep Solomon?
No, because he's already tipped it off. Remember, Atkins is probably going to be at Florida now. I don't know if you heard about that.
Well, I didn't know if that was fake. I saw.
No, it's not fake. I heard about it before. They even had that rumor.
He was wearing
that picture.
He was wearing.
I don't know if it's him or not in that picture.
Well, that's him. I'm wondering if it was a Gator hat. Like, was it?
Well, no. They've already. The rumors already came out before the game that he's going to take a back office job there because he's not allowed to coach on field if he switches schools because he's got the show cause.
Oh.
So Florida's going to give him an office gig or whatever, analyst, which we're paying for, so he can take the recruits.
Speaking of off the field analysts, dude, what do you think happens to Odell? I'd love to see him be like.
Yeah, I think if it's Tony White and he gets his guy Terrence Knighton,
yeah.
If you run a 3-3-5 primarily, you only need one defensive line coach. So
yeah, that's true. Well then.
So and this Terrence Knighton guy, former NFL player, I heard, heck of a personality and great recruiter. Nebraska does not want to lose him.
Right.
I mean, he's kind of tied with him. And then there's another guy who joined our staff as an analyst who was with Tony in Nebraska, who was the Homestead High School coach that led them to state championships.
Okay.
So there's relationships like built in.
So if that happens,
Odell's probably going to go off into the sunset.
You think he'd retire? I mean,
he has to.
He's younger than people think. He's only like
no. Oh, I understand. I think listen, he's set. Let's just say that.
Yeah, but what if he's not ready? I mean, I think he coaches because he genuinely loves these kids. Like he came up through the Bowden era. Like there was a different, I could see his whole life, his whole.
He's a no through and through. He won't go elsewhere.
But I don't
remember. He's been a state employee for almost 30 years now.
Yeah. So who says why would he want to ride off into the
I think he'd take an ambassador role.
That's
maybe
what I'm saying.
A year or two.
An off the field analyst job and like just be almost like a guidance counselor for these kids. Like give him just his door's always open.
He'll always have a job at Florida State.
I hope though that he does take a position like that.
I think so. We'll work with Seminole boosters. I don't know if you've ever met him before.
I have not.
He is like he walks in a room and you just can't help but fall in love with him in like 30 seconds. He has that kind of personality.
He should be our director of recruiting or something. Like we have to find a role for him.
Well, after David Johnson, I would put either one of us there.
Yeah.
But listen, I don't know if you heard my live stream the day we lost the running back from Heritage. I mean, I ripped Mike like you wouldn't believe. So I kind of feel like, hey, I don't want to get too excited, but I love these hires.
Yeah.
I'm going to pull back. I'm going to say, hey, I thought we'd be good this year. Look what happened. But I woke up pumped today as a Seminole fan.
But it definitely showed. I guess it gives me a
He
little.
learned.
It gives me a little bit of excitement for the transfer portal too, because
Yeah.
it shows we're not messing around. Like it was hard to find critics of the moves we made. A lot of people were like, "Whoa," across the board. Like it's almost unanimous. Like even the haters are like, those are pretty good hires." I think the only people who were kind of poo-pooing it were UCF fans because they're like, "We're going to fire him anyways." But outside of that,
Yeah, but who cares?
we made
It's
it
not like we made him our head coach.
right.
That's the thing, and I don't want Gus as a head coach,
No,
but calling plays and running an offense, sure.
now I
And
want
Gus
to
ain't
see
here
them.
for the money. I mean, what he's made at Auburn, what he got in his buyout at Auburn, what he made at UCF, I think he made about 5 a year. He doesn't need an extra million
Right.
or two to be a head coach somewhere.
It was 5 a year at UCF, and
Right.
what was his about?
20 or 30? He got some crazy number.
Yeah.
So this is almost like a retirement thing, or if I really want to be a head coach again somewhere big.
So it gets me excited to see if we bring that same level of aggressiveness to the transfer portal. I want that day to come already because I need something to look forward to. Like
I hear there's a lot of interest in Florida State.
there's some 5 stars hitting the portal too.
Yeah.
Especially at the receiver position.
Yeah.
How do you if I'm a 5-star receiver, like why? And you're not just a diehard Knoll. Why the hell would you come play for us, right?
I agree.
It's such a tough sell. I don't know how we're going to do it, other than how much you want, man. That's the only way.
No, you say look at Keon Coleman. Look, like we just got a flip tonight. A West Virginia commit, another 6'5", 6'7" receiver.
Yeah, I saw
maybe
that
an hour or two ago. Keon Coleman got on a FaceTime with him.
But if you're 6, it's 3-star though. He's not.
It's a project. I hear you.
Well, if you're 6'5" and you're a 3-star, that's a red flag for me. Why in high school?
I also say I don't know the backstory in the kids. Sometimes some kids only played a couple years. Like I don't know the whole story. Hakeem Williams didn't play until his junior year.
Yeah,
so we haven't helped. We haven't helped.
5-star.
Yeah.
If you're 6'5" and you can catch in high school, you're unstoppable.
You should be.
You should be. So
Yeah.
for people to see him, like I'm picturing like Greg Carr type hips and mobility. I know nothing about him other than he's 6'5" and he's a 3-star, and that's it.
Right. But I like that Mike's going to have people also helping him build the roster. I understand it falls on the head coach. They got to, but like Gus Malzahn would have never said, "Yeah, DJU is a good idea."
Right. Well, so the
and I'm not trying to harp back on that.
No,
I get the reason why he did it. I'm just saying it's good. What's the best way? Worst said it best. There's some adults in the room now.
Well, here's the thing. I don't think DJ by himself, like just DJ, wasn't as big of a whiff as everyone's piling on. Like this narrative gets built up. If we could run the damn football with the cannon of an arm as DJ has, on paper, it was a good fit.
We thought we were going to have a great offensive line and a superb running game, and DJ would just be the
and Benson and
the dressing on top.
And Benson and Jaylen Brown is legitimate deep threats.
I mean, Destin Hill, losing him before the year,
that hurt.
You knew that was your true deep threat.
Benson and Jaylen Brown were deep threat. I mean, Jaylen Brown's fat. So those three, everything we just said, none of it panned out.
Yeah, that's why I hate talking about players now because who knows who's staying, who's not. I mean, there's some guys that they leave and you say, man, he was good. For all you know, he was a problem behind the scenes.
Yeah, and
I think Mike is going scorched earth with a lot of this. He seemed like that after the game.
Well,
it was like he took his mask off and was like, now I can tell you how I really feel.
I really liked the way, I mean, it was kind of funny the way he said it. He was like, I'm not going to beg you. Oh, please play for me.
That's not him.
Like that. And I love that because I always wonder what it's like behind closed doors. Like I have to manage people at work.
Yeah.
And so I know what it's like when you've got like a talented person and they're constantly like, hey, I want more, I want more. At some point you got to be like, there's a door, man. I'm not doing this again. Yeah. And you have to have enough confidence in like your system to be like, no, go. I'll find somebody else.
Yeah.
No one's worth the rest of the organization for that.
I had the most embarrassing year of my career. If you think I'm going to beg you to stay, it's another thing coming.
And it's
It's
good
what
to hear that that's his stance, because
it seems like that.
I never know what coaches are like behind the scenes. If they're
Yeah.
just begging these kids, because that's almost like what you have to do. That's like a really sad
Yeah.
position to be in, and it just crushes culture.
I know, and I hear you. Listen, one of my big complaints was he let a lot of guys stay for this year that he should have told, have a
Yeah.
good day. I think he feels like, man, a lot of these guys really burned me. Nothing personal. A lot of them he may really like, but I got burned this year.
Yeah.
I trusted these coaches. I trusted these players. It falls on me. I mean, this is like taking a car and completely redesigning it. What he's
Yeah.
doing.
Or
He's not like, oh, it's just a new coach here, a new coach there, shine it up a little. No, this is like taking an engine now and completely putting a different engine. It's a whole new car. The only thing the same is the paint.
It's step one of like 3 really big off-season moves. He nailed step 1. Step 2, signing day. Step 3 is transfer portal. We kind of actually have to hit on probably transfer portal more so than signing day. And I really do think tomorrow's going to be like, nah, like really.
But we knew that 2 months ago.
Yeah, but like I remember
Yeah.
there were some Bobby Bowden days where I'm like, man, what happened to Bobby? And then signing day comes and we're top 5. Like
I know that was a different time. Like,
but we said, look what Napier's done in a week. Like it's not impossible to do now.
Yeah, no, but all of a sudden Florida's committed to him and they're giving him NIL money, and they had stopped doing that because they didn't think he was the guy. They didn't want to waste money on him. Now they believe in him.
Well, he hadn't done it in like at all. I mean, year one, they weren't giving him.
But I guarantee you, he goes 7-5 next year. He's out at Florida.
I do think the way the season they had helped too, because
of course
some really good teams.
And he's got a special talented quarterback.
And I actually just think he's a talented recruit. He's the talented recruiter that everybody thought he was coming in, and he's starting to show it. Yeah. And Mike, with what we've done at the coordinator position, now needs to go do that. Like he has to be that guy. And if he is,
I mean, they're changing their philosophies now, which
I need to see probably like, let's talk about what best case scenario, like what is the ceiling for tomorrow? If we somehow manage to keep Solomon, keep the guys that we have, and we flip like 3 or 4, I would say up front, like offensive, defensive alignment, like 4-star guys. Let's be realistic. We get 4 4-star up front players. I don't care where they play up front. That's a win for me.
I'd rather save some. I'd rather not sign a guy just to sign a guy and save that scholarship for the portal. I'd rather have a smaller class and put it in the portal.
Kids, that's brutal.
I mean, because Bud Elliott was like, you can't have a class of 7. You could, but it would bad.
We need to get into the 18 people.
You're not going to get 18 tomorrow.
Well, we're at 12, 13. Like it's
true.
And
listen, I didn't think we'd have an OC and DC by signing day. I laughed.
I wouldn't be surprised if they're targeting 20. It's just they may fill it with 3-star guys.
And there's a lot of guys that we don't know who Tony and Gus have relationships with.
Exactly. So that's what I want to see. This is where if there's a relationship there, Norvell needs to get with these guys, get in those living rooms, and get them to flip. Like this is the next progression of Mike's career. And you're the one who said this is what it needs to be. And now that I've seen the hires that he's made, I've realized that is the route they're going. Like Gus is going to run the offense, and Mike needs to become a CEO recruiting head. Tomorrow's day 1 of that process, and we'll see how he does. And then the next thing we got to get excited about is transfer portal, and then we'll know what next season might look like.
And I think he learned like to be a head coach during the week and then be in every offensive room dealing with that. It was too much.
It was, and he really. I mean, the more I think about just some of the basic crap we did. When's the last time we ran a legitimate screenplay, like a design?
Not since Trey Benson.
I can't. We didn't run one all year. You have
because we didn't have.
Our line is hemorrhaging defenders, and you have quarterbacks who aren't completing passes. Throw a fucking screen.
Yeah, and I have to give pause on one thing. I know this is different. Irish made another good point, and him and I've disagreed with a lot of stuff he said, but he made a good point because I told you I was really upset with the way they quit. I thought they quit on him, and that's when I was losing my interest in Norvell.
Yeah.
And he said maybe it's just a lot of guys who are 23, 24, dealt with the snub last year. You're a 1-2 win team. Maybe they're just tired of football and getting their heads kicked in every week. And they're ready to go on with their life. And they're not quitting on Mike, they're just quitting on the game of football.
I don't. So I have a. I know that.
I'm not saying that's the case. I'm just saying it does make
that
sense.
term,
But they like Mike, but I'm just done with this game, man.
Football is not a sport you can quit on, though. Like, there was one year in high school, we had like 6 seniors. It was my junior year. We had 6 seniors, and it was a rough year. We were not a bad high school football team, but our junior year we sucked. Yeah. And you can't quit. Like, when you're 1-7 and it's 3rd and 2, you're either going to hit somebody or they're going to hit you.
Oh, yeah.
You don't go, I wonder what I'm doing this Saturday. It's just not a sport where you can lollygag mentally. So I've never really bought into that.
I agree. But if you're not benching kids, also, that was Atkins' issue.
Well,
Atkins was playing guys who were hurt because they were loyal to him.
Yeah. Well, I guess to the quitting thing, though, I think what really, like, our offensive line sucks. Right. Like, we aren't. It just cripples what you can do. So you're 3 and out, you give them the ball back, we turn them 8 fumbles. I mean, you turn the ball over. We're flat out not good. It's not a well put together team. Right. I don't know how much of it was kids going, I can't wait for the offseason. If you do that, you're going to get hurt.
No, I agree. I just think it was not the offseason, it was just life.
Yeah.
I mean, some of these kids, 5th, 6th year in the program.
Yeah.
2 coaching changes. You got the highest of high. Now you're at the lowest of low.
Yeah.
I mean, Maurice Smith, Darius Washington's guys are playing with half a body.
Toa Feely came in with Willie Taggart and went from that all the way up.
I thought he was Norvell's first. He was in Norvell's first year.
I thought
he committed to Willie.
Right. He committed. You're right. He committed.
And then Norvell made him his first phone call when he got to Florida State.
Yeah.
Yeah. So he's been there. Yeah. It's another guy.
Yeah.
Would have been nice if Mike rewarded him a little more the other night, but that's another story. But the other night, when Darius Washington gave up that strip sack, they pulled him for a quarter.
Yeah.
Atkins never would have done that.
Yeah.
And I'm not trying to throw salt on the wounds and that he's gone now, but Gus and whoever his offense, they're not going to let that slide.
Yeah.
You're at the next series because you're it. Like, no, that's what I like, man. There's going to be more accountability now.
Yeah. We got to bring in. I wouldn't mind if we had 5 new starters on offensive line next year.
I wouldn't mind if we have 19 total in the team.
Yeah, just.
I mean, you might be looking at 45, 50 new guys.
Well, I don't know if it's that.
I mean, it's between the portal and high school and.
Well, I wouldn't want that. I guess our defense, talent-wise, there's a lot of talent.
Yeah, but our defensive line is. Our only good players are good.
We're going to be running a 3-3-5 though. Now, our defensive line, I feel comfortable after we're going to get pressure on the quarterback. We're going to scheme up pressure, and at the collegiate level, all you got to do is confuse a 19-year-old on where his assignment is.
Yeah.
We didn't even try. So I think we'll be okay there, especially when you have the talent we have on the back end. Like, I think that's a perfect fit for us. And then on offense, we still have a stable of running backs. If you give Luke, I don't know if they're going to stick with him or not. I hope they do, because I'd like to see a whole offseason of him pick up this offense. I think he has the skill set. So to me, it's really as basic as we need to be able to block and run the football, and we probably need 2 legitimate receivers. If you can do that, I think we're a 10-win team.
But I think we'll have a coach also who schemes the right way for whoever the opponent is.
Right.
Not, this is what we do, and this is how we're going to do it. Like,
right. Agreed.
I mean, every week you should have, all right, Miami does this. We need to do this. Like, I understand you give to the defense. You don't take what they give you. Jimbo, before he checked out, was really good at every week. You knew, okay, he'll have something that special for this team, special for that team. We need to get back to that.
Yeah.
Gus tends to do that. He needs to get back to his innovative ways.
Yeah, Norvell. That was Norvell. I mean, that's why I really liked Norvell. I think he did put a good scheme together for both of those LSU games. They were unique, and he took advantage of some really good defensive fronts.
Yeah.
And when we didn't have that great of an offensive line, and it worked. The 5-7 year, he was constantly scheming a really crappy offense to get down. We had no receivers.
Yeah.
And we could move the ball, and it was serviceable. And it was creative with what he was making a lot with a little.
No,
And
I agree.
We haven't done that in 2 years. He had a lot of
there was about 2 moments the other night where there was some creative plays. The 4th down where Luke held it, found the open guy.
Yeah.
That was all creative. And the 2-point to Landon Thomas.
Yeah.
That was creative.
Yeah.
I'm sure Mike has had more of those. It's just this team just couldn't catch a cold.
Right.
But real quick, man, my friend John wants to ask us what we think about the flag planting and the fights over the weekend.
Yeah.
Very simple. If you're at home and lose, these things happen. Like,
well,
it doesn't bother me.
If I was a coach, I would not want my team planting a flag. So it's going to happen. You're gonna get into a fight.
There's no ifs, ands, or buts.
Yeah. So if you're going out there and everyone's like, oh, well, if you don't want it, just stop them. All right, that's easy to say. You're gonna have 4 or 5 kids that are already pissed. You're asking for a fight. So there's like a line, like any situation, there's a line that if you cross it will result in a fight. Planting a flag in the middle of the field is that line. So you can agree with it or not, that's fine. A flag gets planted, there will be a fight. That's it. Yeah. That's going to cross enough lines with enough people where it's a fight. So, I actually respected the way Napier handled it after the game. He said it's not going to whether it was lip service or not, he did it. Brian Day stood there and watched, and then afterwards said, don't let it happen. He just stood there.
He talked about from the 2017, the Oklahoma, when Baker Mayfield did it.
Yeah.
And he said, we can't let this happen again. He just said we had some guys that weren't going to let that happen.
Yeah. So no matter what side, like what everybody's opinion of it is, if you plant a flag, it'll be a fight. So it'll end up being legislated out of the game because you plant 100 flags, you've got 100 fights.
Right. It's funny. They're more like we're trying to find fans for rushing the field and that stuff, which is 15 minutes after the game. Right. Most players are gone. The flag is when they're crossing paths. I was at that Ohio State fight. Like, I saw it.
Yeah.
I saw the guy grab the flag. And when I saw him, Ohio State was doing their thing with the band.
Yeah.
They all turned, and I said, this is about to go down. It just got out of hand there with the pepper spray and the way the cops were acting a little bit.
Right.
The Florida State one was pretty tame. Like, it was a little pushing, a little arguing.
And that's the thing.
The North Carolina NC State was a little worse.
Yeah.
It doesn't bother me, man. It really doesn't. It's football. It should inspire you to win more. Well, that's why I like Baker Mayfield, what he said yesterday about it.
All of that can be true. When you have 100 kids on the sideline and one of them goes out there to pull the flag because it's going to happen, you now have 2 football teams fighting. So it's a line that for whatever reason is going to piss enough people off where it causes a fight.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I mean, listen, they roll the cops out there.
Yeah.
It's not going to happen. But, my buddy Chris has a funny comment. Billy, how can you say we never threw a screen this year? Did you miss the 15 wide receivers? I'll speak for Billy here. He was talking about 2 running backs.
A traditional screen, not a bubble screen, not a tight end screen. I'm talking our offensive line, the way they block, looked like a traditional halfback screen. We didn't run one. We just let the defensive line in, you swing the offensive line out, and you swing it to the running.
But those take time to develop. We had no time for that.
I
don't consider a check down a screen. I'm talking about in the flat in the back.
A traditional screen.
We had no time for that.
You pull your guard and your tackle. The whole point of a screen is the defenders are coming free. You trick them. You can scheme that up.
And Cam Davis doesn't have the speed for that.
Totally.
I agree. They didn't use him this year.
He
would have 6 yards early on for like 30 or 40, and he wouldn't touch the ball the rest of the game.
It is a very basic concept for offensive coordinators that are struggling with their offensive line to incorporate a screen game, not a bubble screen, a traditional halfback screen game. Mm-hmm. It makes the defensive line think twice. When they beat their guy that easily, they go, oh, crap, is this a screen? I know that sounds stupid, but again, they're 20-year-old kids. They're reacting. We would naturally get beat up front so bad. There were times it looked like a screen. Just implementing the screen game in, believe it or not, can make a defensive tackle go, oh, wait, do I need to get out to the flat or not? And that split second is enough, and we never did it, ever.
No,
And
I agree.
we used to. Our
We also didn't take advantage. Like all of a sudden, man, I love the Seminole headline guys. They made some really good points today. I don't know if you heard their show. They talked about it was like almost like participation stuff where if a guy was red hot, Mike would pull him this year.
Yeah, Tofi.
It's like, yeah, Tofili, somebody. And it was like, this isn't like these are 19, 20, 21-year-old kids. It's not a, all right, Billy, you get 3 plays, then I get 4, then you get 5. If Billy's the man out there, you let him stay.
I think the
You know,
staff was
Gus won't do that. Like,
I think the coaching staff was so almost on tilt the whole second half. I think they were had a lot of knee-jerk reactions to things, and it was just disjointed from Israel. I can't even. I hate it.
Yeah, and I know we're harping on this year, and this year's done.
It's
like, thank God.
So bad. Yeah. So I'm really looking forward to it.
Chris, appreciate it, buddy.
Yeah.
No, there wasn't. That's why Mike needs somebody he can respect and trust in the room.
Right.
He hasn't had that. And he put the staff together. I'm not saying he's a victim there. But Gus is like one of his mentors.
Well, again, it served a purpose until they ran into some tough times, and it revealed a lot
on
of
an NFL roster.
Right.
Like Gus has made a lot of stuff out of average quarterbacks.
He's gonna be able to run the football. That alone is just such a. It's.
I don't want Luke to be the starter next year, unless he changes. Mike has to win now. Mike doesn't have time to develop things.
I know we gotta run. I gotta run.
I won't keep you forever, I promise.
If we don't give Luke the keys, we don't have a QB room at all.
Not if we bring somebody in.
I know, but then we're constantly. You're gonna have to bring.
You don't want to do the portal every year. I agree.
And you can't portal in. I guess it's going to be hard to portal in a starter and a backup. We only have Luke because I guess I'm just assuming Brock Glenn leaves.
Honestly,
that's
Trevor Jackson. If there was ever a quarterback that could be designed for Gus's offense, it's this guy. He's an athlete. He can throw. He is in that Jared Stidham, Nick Marshall. Maybe not as fast as Nick because he was a DB, but Trevor Jackson's designed for Gus Malzahn on offense, even more than Luke.
I'm just worried if you bring in a starter, there's a chance you lose all 3 of them. Because I think all 3
I
of them.
don't care at this point. We're a 2-win team.
When you bring in a starter, how do you bring in a backup too? Who's going to transfer to sit behind somebody? Like, it's challenging. If you tell all 3, we're going to go through the spring, and they're still freshmen. And I think Luke would win it out. I just think he's got all the skills. He's
a tough kid, man.
He's a tough kid.
Tough kid. They respect him. He's loved in the locker room.
But
I let Trevor get a shot, man.
I agree.
This was a 3-4-star kid, I think.
He was a 4-star kid.
Yeah, and he did a preferred walk-on with us, and I'm sure Battle's End is whatever. Well, I'm assuming he's not paying his education. Let's just say his preferred walk-on.
Yeah, well, a scholarship's worth $10,000, $12,000 a year. His NIL is worth what?
NIL's it's why that's also a new thing where kids might go to a school now, not on scholarship per se, but NIL's paying their way. But this kid, from what I hear, is very athletic, and you have to be athletic to run Gus's system.
Yeah, it would be. I don't want to lose them. So then, to me, bringing in a stud, I think, might lend itself to losing.
I don't think there's going to be stud quarterbacks in the portal. It's not going to be a Cam Ward this year.
There's always going to be. There's going to be an agent that says, I know you like your team, man. You want to make $5 million?
That's true.
And he's going to go, who's got $5 million? And right now, if there was a Cam Ward there's so many teams that would take him.
That's true.
So,
like right now, the hot shot is Miller Moss. Now that's going to change.
Right. I every year there's kids who go in the portal. I'm like, really? You left that?
I would love Luke to sit for a year and redshirt, learn Gus's system.
Get him in. I want to see him run with the ones for a spring and an off season. That does wonders.
You can still do that even if you bring in a portal. You give him reps with the ones.
But Mike hasn't been doing that.
Well, practices are going to be different now.
That's actually been one of his big. So the reason Jordan Travis developed so well is he gives his number 1 all the time in practice. From what I've read, because I asked, how can these guys look so inept at quarterback? And Mike is really big on, if there's 10 snaps, starter gets 7, backup gets 2, you may have 1 or 2.
This is where it's different now. I mean, Mike is bringing in coaches who are going to like revamp things.
Yeah.
Which is nice. It's not like you're coming in and you're going to keep doing it the way we've been doing it. Like Gus might say, hey, I'm doing it like this. I don't think Mike's going to stop him. Kind of like when Jimbo came in. He was telling Bobby, this is how I want to do things.
Yeah.
And Bobby listened.
We'll see after transfer portal day. Can't wait.
See after transfer, December 9th.
Yeah.
That's when it starts. But Billy, thank you for your time, man.
Always fun.
Great call about let's get guys who've coached in the big games.
Yeah, and if any of you watch film, just watch the defensive plays for Nebraska. Pick a game and just fast forward to the defensive plays. It's a fun defense to watch. I think a lot of people would like it.
We just got to get the right players.
Yeah.
Yeah. But Billy, thank you again.
Yeah, man.
All right, buddy. We'll talk later, man.
Take it easy.
All right. Thanks, everyone.